Mr. Phillip Thigpen. Thanks for coming and visiting with us today. And kind of want to give an overview of kind of who, this is not who you are, but some of the things that you've been involved in. Graduated from Louisiana Tech. What'd you graduate in?
I actually graduated in physical education with a math minor.
Okay.
My goal growing up, my dad was a high school and college basketball coach, was I was going to coach basketball and teach school and things like that.
Where'd you grow up at?
So actually my dad, like I said, coached basketball. We moved around North Louisiana. So most of my life in Ruston, did spend 5 years over in Monroe area, went to Jack Hayes Junior High at the time, and lived 2 years in Bossier City. So I tell people I basically lived in North Louisiana growing up, settled at Ruston High. Daddy got the Ruston High School job when I was a freshman, and so went to Ruston High School and then stayed there in Ruston with Louisiana Tech.
So during high school, were you the kid that was always involved in sports? Did you have a summer job? Did you work in high school?
So Dad said, look, I want you to be a kid. You're only a student one time. I want you to enjoy the summers. So I didn't work at all until I graduated high school. But my love was basketball. And so I spent a lot of time in the gym and just, going to other sporting events. We're a big sports family. And so that's where I just kind of grew up around sports and fell in love with sports.
So Louisiana Tech, why Louisiana Tech?
It was home. It was close. I was growing up really shy, really insecure. I believe a lot of that's because we moved a lot growing up. Every couple of years, Dad was taking another job. So I really started coming out of my shell until really in college. And so it was close. And so I thought, most of my friends were going there. And so I thought, let me go to Louisiana Tech. And my parents went there. And my grandfather went there.
Okay, so there's some history
there's some history there as well. So it was easy.
What did you major in?
Major in physical education with a math minor.
Math minor? Why a math minor?
Well, because I was going to be a high school teacher and coach. And Dad said, look, all the football coaches, they get the math, they get the science, the history jobs, the PE jobs. You want to get a job, get a math minor. So I got a math minor to make it easier to get a job in teaching and coaching high school basketball.
Well, I could see how that would actually work. So did you travel down that path?
So I actually got into high school, coached basketball for 3 years, and then to get out of it, and was hired by a guy named Rodney Fuquay to work at Fuquay Paper Supply, and worked there for about 14 months. And then,
what'd you do for them there?
When I first got there, I just kind of worked in the warehouse, did some things, inventorying, things like that in the warehouse. I actually left there and went to Pierce Lumber, worked at Pierce Lumber for 6 months or so. And then Rodney called me and he said, hey, I want to make a change in leadership. And I want to know if you'd come back and lead Fuquay Paper Supply. He said, I'm ready to retire. I want to go to the lake. And so I said, yes, sir. So I went over there and started running Daily Harvest, Fuquay Paper Supply there in Ruston.
How long did you do that for?
I started in 2001 and left there in 2007, and that's when I moved over here to Monroe. Got a job at Green Sports, did sales at Green Sports, and eventually was kind of Bobby Alls, his general manager, kind of helped him run Green Sports. And then in 2011, I bought Daily Harvest.
So wait a minute. That's a little bit of a jump.
Yes.
So we're math teacher in sports in school. It's what we graduated in. And then we go to a couple other jobs and start running a business. And then now we end up
let's buy a restaurant, right?
to Daily Harvest. I mean, how did you make that jump and what kind of led you to that?
Well, I've been managing business since 2001. So from 2001 to 2010, managing businesses. And being honest, I thought, you know what? I want to own something. And so I researched and looked and tried to find something to buy. One thing I quickly understood about buying something, you had to have money.
Yeah.
And so I had to try to figure out what fit the amount of money I could get. And at that point, I saw this restaurant come open, Daily Harvest. Now, another funny story is I was single at the time. I was dating my wife, Bonnie. I don't cook. I don't like to cook.
Wait a minute, hang on.
Exactly.
So you don't cook.
Yep.
You don't like to cook,
Yep.
and you're like, I'm gonna go in the restaurant business.
Yeah, exactly. So they had cooks, right? So I was going to own it. That was my mind. That's how my mind was working. I'm just going to own it. I like talking to people. I'll visit with the customers out front. I'll do some marketing. I'll do that sort of thing. I'll do the ordering. Let the cooks cook.
How'd that work out for you?
It worked out good until one day the baker called me and he had a blood clot in his leg. And so he's at the hospital. And so I take my little notepad over there and I run over there and sit at his bedside, no joke, and start saying, okay, what do you do and when do you do it? and started making notes. Luckily, we had recipes and everything, but learned enough to be dangerous. I learned enough to be able to keep the restaurant open when my cooks didn't show up for different reasons. But really was just looking for an opportunity to just continue to grow and continue to figure out some things. And again, like I said before, I enjoy working for Rodney Fuqua, enjoy working for Bobby Alls, but just kind of want to say, can I do something myself?
Yeah. So the business was already up and run. You bought a fully functioning business. So you didn't have to go through the startup growing pains at that point. But I'm sure you had some growing pains where you're like, man, we won't do that again. What are some of your takeaways from operating something that you were fully in control of that you wish you would have done different, or that you learned from those mistakes that could have really sunk you had you not made a shift?
Well, one mistake I believe I made is that opportunity when I first got there to buy some land and build a standalone restaurant. If you remember with Daily Harvest, it's a small restaurant. Yeah. And one thing I learned is in the restaurant business, you need those tables turned. You don't want to rush somebody out of there, but when you only have 20, 25 seats, you're limited very quickly. And so one thing that I learned pretty quickly is that limitation. So we expanded our catering opportunities. So that's one place we grew. But to look back, that's one thing I would have done differently. Now, the financial situation I was in is why I bought Daily Harvest. I didn't have a whole lot of extra money. And so I don't know how I would have done it, but I'd have figured out a way to buy some land, to build a standalone for the drive-through capabilities. We had drive-through, but it really wasn't the best setup, very efficient. We have no way to take the order for the guy at the window and some things in there. Also, we were limited in the kitchen with the amount of space we could do and things like that. So I would have put us in a better situation back in 2011 for future growth with that.
Now, you already had experience managing coming into Daily Harvest with hiring and probably firing, I would have to assume, employees and managing them and building them up to be great employees. What did you walk me through some of those steps of? There's no handbook that you can get today that says if you do this, this, and this, you should get this result out of this, because everybody's different, those personalities. Walk me through some of those learning opportunities.
Well, I take it back to growing up with my dad was a basketball coach. My mom's a teacher. You know, when you got a basketball team like my dad, and I watched him, I was his shadow, I was always around him, is watched how he did a phenomenal job of taking one personality and being able to coach that personality while taking another personality and coaching it different. So yes, he treated everybody equally, but you have to treat everybody a little bit differently. Yeah. And so I learned that from him. And in the 3 years I coached basketball in high school, that's one thing I learned as well. So one thing I've learned in managing people is you got to get to know the person. And you got to really care about the person and know that everybody has got things that they are wanting to accomplish in life. Sure. And so for me, there and every place I've been, I've tried to get to know the person and tried to care for the person. And once I do that, then it helps me be able to lead them better. And so at the restaurant was no different than any place else. Like those employees had things that they cared about and they had things that they wanted to accomplish. And so I had to try to figure out how can I help them accomplish what they want to accomplish within the framework of our team. It's no different than a sports team trying to achieve a goal. In the business world, everybody has goals. We want to make more money or we want time off with our family. And so you got to learn those goals and then make it all fit to be able to help you achieve your goals as a company.
Because not everybody, it's not always about money.
That's
everybody
correct.
Typically starts off saying, well, if I had this, I'd be able to do this. But when you really start talking to them, you can help them. And it's important to help them discover what it is that motivates them. How hard do you think that is for our youth today? You hit the nail on the head that everybody, you got to know the person. But I've often found, even though that you know the person, a lot of times they don't really know themselves or why they're doing or why they want what they want. What have you seen in that area?
There's no doubt. And one thing that I think that is hurting our young people right now is they think that they can come out and be on the top. Yeah. And they don't understand they got a lot to learn to get there. I mean, I managed businesses from 2001, and in 2011, I bought a business, and I still hadn't figured it out. So I managed for 10 years, and I coached basketball for 3 years, and I walked my day. And so it's a lot to learn, a lot to process. So I think everybody needs to understand, whether you're a young person or an adult, is just enjoy the process. Yeah. Enjoy the journey. And for me, that's hard a lot of times. I'm very goal and I'm very driven. And so for me also to realize, hey, enjoy this season, enjoy this time. And it's hard. But everybody has something to the core that they want to get accomplished. And so that's one thing I try to do as well is listen to them, ask them questions, and then point to them and try to help them realize what they're really going after.
Right.
Because they all think they're going after money. But then when you listen to them and then you go, you know what, I think I hear you want this, but you know what, this over here may fit you better. Another thing I learned in coaching a sport, which I think has helped me become a very effective leader, is a lot of people don't know what their skill set is be able to look at somebody, watch somebody, see how they interact, see their skill set, and put them in a position to be successful. You know, I think about basketball. Everybody wants to shoot a three-pointer. You know, football. Everybody wants to run the ball. Everybody wants to be the quarterback, but everybody's not the quarterback.
Yeah.
And so you got to make sure they understand their skill set, and you put them in position. It doesn't make them less valuable.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people feel like, I don't play quarterback, I'm not as valuable. No, that's not it at all. And because I owned Daily Harvest at the time, or I managed the First West Thrift Store, I'm no more valuable than anybody else. And that's one thing I try to make sure that they understand is you're just as valuable as I am. We all have parts to play.
Yeah, if we look at it from a team perspective, that quarterback is not going to make it in a game if he doesn't have the center. Or that receiver is not going to make it if he don't have people blocking for them. So everybody's got their part. And I think as society, we have done a disservice by elevating certain roles and telling everybody that if you're not this, you're nothing. Well, this person up here wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for all these people around them to make it.
And one way I try really hard to show that is I'll give responsibilities, but then when I give you responsibilities, I'll come behind you and say, how can I help you? Even though I'm the boss or was the owner, there was many times in the kitchen the people are cooking. I'm like, and I see them cooking. What can I do to help? So I try to display to them, we're all in this thing together. Yeah. Like, I'm no better than you. You're no better. I've got a role to play.
But it gives them confidence by seeing that, hey, my supervisor is here willing to go walk through this with me, and it's going to give them more confidence about their job. So at some point with Daily Harvest, you're thinking, I need something more.
Well, actually, I was thinking about how would I grow Daily Harvest, and I was at a catering job at First Baptist Church, West Monroe.
Okay.
We used to cater every Wednesday night for Wednesday night meal. I'm in there catering. Michael Wood, the pastor, comes through the line there, and he says, hey, I need to see you. You got time to see me this week? And I said, sure. He said, let's get an appointment. So I set an appointment up. I get my notepad out. I'm going up because I think Michael's got me a catering job, right? He's got something going on. I'm going to do some catering for Michael. And so he pulls me in his office. I talk a minute, and he said, look, the reason I called you in here is we have a position open to be the director of the thrift store. Our previous lady, our director, is moving to Dallas, and she told us in April. This is now September. And he said, I just feel led in praying about it that you're supposed to be our new director of First West Thrift Store. I'm thinking.
I mean, this is like out of left field.
Left
right?
field. I'm thinking, there's no way. Like, I got a restaurant, right? And when you own something, you got to get rid of it. Yeah. I mean, right? I mean, it's yours. I mean, everybody I talk to, they want to own something, but they don't understand what it means to own it.
The buck stops with the owner, right?
Exactly. Somebody don't show up to work. Well, guess what? I'm on that line, or I'm doing that. Or like I said earlier, the baker doesn't show up to work at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm baking at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, the buck stops with me. I've got to do everything. Everything's on my name, right? At that point, I still had notes to pay the bank, right? Yeah. So everything stops with me. So I said, well, I'll think about it. Thinking to myself, there's no way I can do this, even if I wanted to. I went home and told my wife, I said, Bonnie, you're never going to believe what just happened to me today. And I told her, and she says, you're going to take the job? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how? She said, I don't know how, but you're going to do this. And so I started thinking, okay, how do I get this accomplished? And so I tried different times to owner finance it. At the whole time of owner financing it, I was going back and forth. And I think it was a total God thing for me to have to do two things at one time, because it showed me how much of a in control leader I was. While I delegated, I still wanted to be in the know. I still wanted to be really hands-on. And when I had to, so I started directing the thrift store in January the 1st of 2015. And so from January 1st, 2015 to December 2018, I did both the thrift store and Daily Harvest.
Was the thrift store in the old location or in the current location?
It was the current new location.
Okay.
And so a lot of days I felt like a tennis ball going back and forth across that river. I'd have decision to be made. It was lunchtime. I ran to the thrift store. I ran to the restaurant, I should say. Go back over across to the thrift store. Like I'm just bouncing back and forth.
You did that for about 5 years?
It's about 4 years.
4 years.
So that's going on in my head. Also, when I got there, Scotty Sanders was the interim executive pastor for First West. I had a meeting with Scotty as soon as I got there, and Scotty introduced me, I would say, to John Maxwell. He said, Phillip, you need to read these books. And I kind of put them aside because I was just busy. I'm just a worker. And so one year, my sister lives in Indianapolis. And that Christmas, he gave it to me in October. That Christmas, I flew to Indianapolis to see my sister for Christmas and read a book from John Maxwell. And it started changing my thinking.
What book was it? Do you remember?
I do. It was Developing the Leader Within You.
Okay.
And it really started to change my thinking. Another thing, a little bit after that point, I'm still kind of brewing on this a little bit. At the same time, still trying to be as hands-on at both places of leading. I was in another meeting, and we were talking about leadership, and Michael Wood looked at me. He just happened to be at my table that day and looked at me and said, Phillip, how did you get into leading? And I thought, well, Rodney Fuqua gave me an opportunity. And so then I thought to myself, wait a minute. John is teaching me how I need to grow myself as a leader. And at the same time, I started reading books about developing other people. So how I cannot give away what I don't have. And as I started learning how to be a better leader, I learned that I needed to give away what I had. And John loved to say this, we're not a reservoir, we're a river. Mm. And so as we started that process, right in my mind, as I started that process of learning that I've got to give it away, and then also thinking about there are people here that I can give responsibility to. When I got there at the thrift store, it was me and 2 more people that were full-time at the time. But we had other people that were there. We had one lady that's my executive assistant right now, administrative assistant, that was sorting household. She was very good at that. But she had other skills and other gifts that she could give that, Brian, she didn't believe she had. Yeah. And so what I did was, with that team of part-timers and a few adults, full-timers, they're all adults, some part-time, some full-time, is on Monday morning, I started having a leadership meeting. We met at the church, and we had a video. I was learning as they were learning. We watched together some John Maxwell videos.
But what was that shift? So when you read that book, and at some point there's going to be an aha moment to where, man, I've thought I was doing everything right, but I've left so much out there. There's so much non-productive time that I'm spending and think I'm being maximizing my. So when was that moment, and what did that moment look like for you? What was the philosophy that he taught you to where you had that shift? Because you were viewed as a really good leader up until this point. Now you're starting to self-reflect by reading this book. What was that thing that you learned?
Well, I learned that we all can grow. You know, we all think we get to a point and we got it figured out. and I've learned, and really the breaking point though was going back and forth. And at the time when I was at Daily Harvest, things just were not working well. The sales started dropping. When I left, we were about $500,000 in sales. Sales started dropping. Well, when sales are dropping, that's making it tough on me because I got bills to pay. I'm living out of that thing. Sure. And I'm having to hire somebody to take my spot. And so another conversation was made of Phillip. And I think the comment was made to brag on me. The comment was made by my assistant director, Phillip, why is it that it's going down now that you're not there? And she meant it as a compliment, like, I'm not there full time, like how good I was doing while I was there. Yeah. And it was the stress of going back and forth. It was a stress of financially realizing I'm losing money over here. How can I do both? And then the aha moment, too, of I got an opportunity. And so all that in my mind, it was more stress. It was more of I'm at the end of my rope. Like I cannot keep going down this path of working Daily Harvest, thrift store, Daily Harvest at night. I just couldn't keep going down that stressful road I was going in the aha moment of it can go well when I'm there spinning the plate.
Right.
But when I walk away, I'm not training people how to spin the plate. I'm not doing a good job of developing other people to spin the plates. And to realize that by reading this book and these aha moments is, it's not their fault at Daily Harvest.
Yep.
It's my fault. Because one thing I learned at Fuquay Paper Supply was, even though those guys making delivery made a mistake, ultimately it was my fault.
Sure.
Because I'm not doing something correctly to address that issue or handle it some kind of way. Because like you mentioned a minute ago, when you're the leader, everything eventually goes to you.
Yeah.
A lot of us as leaders don't want to admit that. We don't want to self-reflect. Yep. And so for me, it was aha moment looking back, if you will, to the Daily Harvest, is like, I did that. Like, I messed this up. It wasn't them. And also at that moment of doing both, I realized we cannot, and I'm very goal-oriented, I'm very driven. We cannot, rephrase this, I cannot grow the thrift store unless I make it a we.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big thing in sports, we over me. Okay, it's about the team. Well, I was making it too much about me.
Yeah.
And so I had to realize, you know what?
Even though you thought you were making it about all these other people, it still rested with you because you were not willing to give up what needed to be given up or train the people that needed to be trained so that you didn't have to be there full time.
Let me say one thing. You mentioned a minute ago, and I was going to say something a little bit. One thing you have to do, too, is you have to see the potential in others when they don't see it in themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. With you being so goal-driven, and I'm somewhat of the same way, when you're working with employees or just other people you may be mentoring, and not everybody's goal-driven, how did you respond to that early on? I know that you're past it now, but with you being so goal-driven, and the people that work for you, probably half of them are not, or probably more than half, have never even heard or even thought about making goals when it comes to their professional life. How did you adapt to that?
Well, it goes back to what I said a minute ago, that I had to start living it, was get to know the person. You know, there was one lady that I started getting more responsibility, very goal-driven. Well, I gave her responsibilities and kept coaching her along the way and took off. The lady that didn't believe that she could do anything besides sort household, I had to pull and push a little more. I had to give her responsibility. And she said, I can't do this. Yes, you can do this. And so I think you've got to push a little bit. But at the end of the day, I had to find out, like, what was keeping her from getting out of her comfort zone. And you do that, I think, by asking questions. Everybody not be goal-oriented, but I think at the end of the day, everybody to the core wants to do better in some form or fashion. Whether it's financially, they want to do better with flexibility. Another thing I started doing was trying to adjust. You know, most of us as leaders, we want you there from 8 to 5. Well, I started realizing, well, I don't have you from 8 to 5. I don't have to have you from 8 to 5. But when you're here, I need you to be doing these other things. So for this one lady I'm thinking about, she might not be goal-driven, but she wanted more flexibility in her schedule. Okay, we can make that work. But in order to make that work, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, finding out what's important for different people.
Getting to know the person.
It's all about people. Yeah. And one thing, too, that I learned, and it's still hard for me to do today, we got to listen. Mm-hmm. You know, communication, people think communication is all about talking. More communication is about listening and asking why. Yeah. And that's another class that I teach. Is a communication class, and try to get people to understand that it's not about me talking. It's more about me getting understanding and connecting on another level.
Or on a level to where the other person can digest it, or you can digest the information from them so that you can ultimately get to know what it is, break down that wall or that barrier so we know what it is that we can do to try to help one another.
And John Maxwell talks a lot about common ground.
Yeah.
So finding the common ground with every person. There may be different common ground with everybody, maybe differently. Common ground with you may be one thing. Common ground with somebody else may be something else. But in order to truly make the connection, you got to meet on a common ground.
Sure. So let's advance. So you ended up finding a way to sell Daily Harvest. It's off your plate. You're all in with a thrift store. Just for those who may not exactly know what the First West Thrift Store is, tell us what it is and what it's there for.
So the First West Thrift Store was birthed out of Katrina. At that time, people were giving clothes away and had so much left over. They decided to start a ministry of selling the products. When they sell the products, they would take some of that money and give it back to local ministries.
Okay.
And so when we started there in 2015, we had about, I think it was like 7 or 8 ministries that we were financially supporting. And since that time, we've tripled in sales. And since 2015, when I got there, we've tripled in sales and tripled basically in amount of money we give away to local ministries. But it's like a Goodwill. People hear Goodwill, they know what it is. Anybody can donate. You donate products to us, and we sell them. We also have a compassionate ministry wing of our department. What we do is if people are in need, they can come talk to the compassionate minister, and he finds the best way to help them. It may be giving them products. It may be referring them to somebody else. It may be doing other things for them, but he tries to vet them out. And so we're really in this for the community, not only for people walking in the door, but when you walk in and you buy something, you donate, you volunteer, you're able to make a big impact to other local ministries. So right now, there's about 26 local ministries that we financially support. Mark Finn, who kind of oversaw this when I got there, he said, we don't want to duplicate services. We've got an avenue. Yeah. The building we have located is a tremendous location.
No, let me tell you, the duplication of services when and for full disclosure, I serve on the board for the thrift store. You're the director of it. And I've got to see kind of firsthand the inside workings of that ministry, and I've been blown away since day one. I had no idea the impact that ministry is making in our community. 100% of that money stays in our community. It's given back to other ministries. And, you hear people from time to time, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And it's because we don't want to duplicate what someone else is doing extremely well. We don't want to start cooking food when we got someone else that's already got that figured out. We don't want to be doing all these other type services when someone's got it figured out. We are good at what we do, and that thrift store is there to generate as much money as it can to give back to the community in these other ministries that are doing. So we're there to support the other.
And to me, it's like a team.
It is.
I mean, we have our role to play, and we're going to do the best we can at that, and then go support the other roles.
So give us a snapshot. So when you walked in the door, how big was it, square footage-wise? Just ballpark it.
Yeah, square footage around 8,000 square feet.
Okay.
At the time, there was some other things housed there.
Yep.
And that building is right around 30,000 square feet. It's a total building.
Right.
We had about 8,000 for retail. We probably had about 4,000 for our back-end processing stuff.
How much
like
retail do you have now?
We've got 13,000 square feet now.
Almost double.
Almost double. We expanded 2 different times. Retail space, and now we've got one little small ministry that meets in probably 2,000 square feet. So we probably got 28,000 square feet of the whole building, offices, back house, processing, storage, and 13,000 square feet of retail space.
What type of stuff do you sell? What type of, better yet, what type of donations can y'all take at the thrift store?
If you can buy it, we sell it. That's what I tell people. I mean, people ask me all the time, what do you have? Well, if you are looking for anything, come and look. I bet you'll be surprised. And I also tell people this. When I first got there, people thought, oh, it's just for people that don't have any money. We have some low-cost items for those people, right? But we also have some very nice items that anybody can go and buy. And
my family shops there.
And that's the thing I think that people are shocked about is like the quality of the items we have. And I tell people all the time, go and look. If we don't have it, then go buy it new.
Yeah.
But you can be good stewards of what you have. In 2 ways that helps. One, you're helping somebody else that needs the help, ministries, but also you're being good stewards of what you have, and you're being able to save some money that you may not had, or maybe you can use that money for something else.
Can you give us some I know it's not going to be an exhaustive list, and you and your team do a great job of listing the charities or local organizational support. Just give us some ideas of some of the people that get support from the thrift store.
Salvation Army, which is our main homeless shelter. Two Penny Ministries, homeless shelter in West Monroe. Desert Street Shelter, dealing with homeless. So we try to help the homeless with that. There's also food banks, Grace Place Ministry. There's some ministries that deal with children. that try to help children get out of some tough situations they've been in through some counseling. Project Help is one of those. Broaden Horizons, truly trying to broaden children's horizons. Yep. Again, going back to leadership, pulling people out and letting them realize, hey, you can do more than you thought you could. So we financially support Broaden Horizons. And there's others. There's battered women facilities we support in this area. Like I said, there's 26 different local ones, and there's a lot of different places that we support. And then once a month, the third Thursday of every month, every penny that comes in goes to a different ministry. There's a brand new ministry in our community called Grace Place Ministries. It's in Balkanville area. It's a men's recovery and other ministries they do down there. This Thursday, which I know is people know what Thursday is this Thursday, but is going to go to them. And so we try to do that also to highlight that ministry. So when you come in and get information about that ministry, not only do we want to give money to these ministries, but we also want to highlight them and let people know, there's a lot of good work going on. And a lot of people giving a lot of time to help a lot of people.
And these ministries, and we're not, as the thrift store, not supporting them fully. I mean, we're contributing to them, and these ministries still need additional dollars coming. They still need additional manpower, woman power, people power to come in and help them. And I think it's really important for people to know that.
One thing that's been very impactful, I really wish everybody that donated, volunteered, and shopped could go with me when I take checks to people. I have had grown men tear up because the impact that they know that those dollars are going to have on the ministry they lead. That's why we do what we do. And that's another thing that I try to do for my staff, my volunteers, is keep the eye on the ball of why do we do what we do.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that in a minute, but just kind of finish on this, the money that's raised. It's important for me, for our community, to know that the First West Thrift Store, and you correct me if I misspeak here, it is a ministry of First Baptist Church of West Monroe. But it's not for profit. It is there to pay the expenses of what it takes to run it. And then everything else goes back to the community.
It goes back to ministries.
Everything goes back. Yeah. And, I really appreciate your heart in the managing of that, to where you're really focused in on the expenses, because the more you spend, the less you're able to give. So that balance that you walk with that, because I know running a business, I mean, there's times where you got to make hard decisions to say that if we don't spend this money now, it's going to cost a lot more down the road if we don't get this AC unit fixed now, or get this roof taken care of, or get whatever handled. I really applaud what you and your team have done to manage those expenses so we can push out as much as we possibly can. And for those that think we're raising the prices a little bit in some areas, we're just trying to get fair market. No, not even fair market. We're just trying to make sure we maintain a good value for the consumer, so that we can put more dollars in our community to help these other ministries.
Well, we do not, and I will not. Matter of fact, since I've been there, we've lowered the prices of our clothing. The fourth Tuesday every month, every clothing item that we have in our regular clothing is $1. So we want to make sure that people that need the clothing, need the household items, can come get them. Okay? But what we're going after are the people that are going and buying new. Hey, y'all come and look first before you go. And you still get a good value, but I'm not giving that to you, okay? Yeah. Because if you're going to go and buy something for $60, a new polo for $60, I may sell it to you for $15. Yeah. That's still a heck of a value for you. But Absolutely. Now I've got more money now that I can take at that $15 price point to go and give to other ministries.
Absolutely. And you still welcome people that want to come in and do resale shopping, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's welcome to come in. And look, there's still always meat on the bone, because there's still tremendous value when you guys price things. I want to talk about culture. How do you create a team of different personalities, different backgrounds, different life stories, and pull together onto one culture? You talked about, getting to know the person. And I understand how important that is, but that's not the only step. Once you get to know them, you got to get them bought into a culture. Tell me about that piece.
I think it's one word that most people that I've even worked for don't understand is truly care. It's one thing to talk about somebody. It's something else to care. To care, you ask the deeper questions. What's going on in your family? How are you doing? And not be fake, like be real. And as I self-reflect, and I do it quite often because I'm one of these, I want the community to get better. So I ask them, and they know they can come tell me if I've got blind spots. But everybody that I've managed tell me that I care about them more than other people that they've worked for care about them. I have other employees that come back and work for me because of that fact. So, and it's not for a job. Like I truly care about them as a person. And so I think once you do this, once you care about them and they know you care, and then the second step I would say, I believe you gotta be who you want them to be. If you want them to be a servant, you gotta serve them. Yeah. If you want them to listen to you, you gotta listen to them. And I think over time, it doesn't happen overnight. Right. You can't force feed a culture. It's just who you are. And then believe over time that happens. But you've got to listen to them. And you've got to, in our situation, like I tell them, if you have an idea, we're going to discuss it. At the end of the day, I think you also have to go to some of their ideas. Because once they know that their ideas matter and you're going to listen, you're going to try some things, now the walls start falling down and they really start, giving you more. Even when you try to care for somebody, they're not going to lower down and give you everything about their family. But when they give you something, you sense something's important to them, if you follow up with that, if you talk to them, if you check on them, then they start building those walls, start coming down. And I think that's truly how we have been able to create the culture is truly caring for our people. And then the first day on the job, I still remember, it was January 1st, 2015. It was cold outside, and my guys had to go down and work in this room that was cold in the thrift store. And I went down there and worked with them because I want to be there working with these guys. I'm not some guy you'll never see. I'm always around our people. I think a lot of leaders make a mistake of thinking it's position. Yeah. It's not a position. You got to live life with them. Again, your job is no more important than their job. Hey. And so I think early on, me just being me and me just going and work and just going and being with these guys, I think the other employees saw that and like, wait a minute, something different about this guy. And so I think for other leaders and for people to know you got to care. You cannot pretend to care. Yeah. You cannot pretend to be there. You also need to be with your people as much as possible.
Now, I'm hearing you on this, and I agree with what you're saying, but I don't want people to miss the point. You're not trying to be their best friend. Because I think there's a lot of people that could be listening to this would think that, well, I've done all those things. And when it comes time to tell them what they're doing wrong and then everything blows up at that point, there has to be a balance to where the people know that you care, you're creating that culture, but they also know that there's got to be accountability to what we've talked about on it and being clear with that accountability up front.
For me, it was my dad. I mean, it's like I've been a father. He cared about me. He helped me. He supported me. Yeah. But then when something's not right, you get called in. Yeah. And so you make a very valid point. And in some of the coaching I've done with some other leaders, they want to be friends, and they don't want to call somebody in and talk about the tough issues. Yeah. I don't enjoy talking about them, but tough issues don't go away.
They don't.
They're only going to get worse. And so one thing that I say to my wife different times, I got to grab the bull by the horns today, and I just got to go call that person in. And then at the same time, we have conversation. It's not about the person. Mm-hmm. It may be about the action.
Sure.
Right? It's not personal attacks. And I've got a little way I kind of do that. Like we talk about good things they do. We got to get the meat of the issue. Mm. And then when they leave, we're going to put the bun back on top, make them feel good about themselves, and realize, I want you at this company. I want you in this job, but we got to fix this, or we got to fix this. Right?
And if we can't fix this, here's what the next step's going to be.
Right. And at the end of the day, one thing I've found too, people that can't fix things, they don't want to fix things, they don't want to be there. Yeah. So like my dad told me many years ago, he said, I don't cut players, players cut players. Mm. I don't fire employees. Employees fire employees because they really don't want to be here. And I've thought about my life, different times in my life. I was very frustrated. I didn't want to be there, but I kept going to that job because it was a job, right? And so sometimes you got to help the employee go, you know what? what is your, like, there's been people, as a matter of fact, a girl walked to the thrift store today that it was a student that finished school and she was just really struggling. She got to be a really good employee to not a very good employee. I started realizing she wanted to do something else. So I kind of just got to help her. And at the end of the day, I said, look, you got to go. You got to go chase your dreams. You got to go somewhere else. And at the time, like, she didn't like it, but I knew deep down that's not really where she wanted to be, and she needed to go chase the things she wanted to be. Today, we had a great conversation at the thrift store, and it's nothing personal, but you as a leader, you've got to have those tough conversations. And what you're saying is exactly right. There's two things I see most leaders doing. One is not getting to know people at all. They say they care about them, but not really connecting with them, okay? Number one, they use position, they don't connect people. Or they go to the other end and they're their best friend, okay? And then, like you mentioned, they want to have a tough conversation. And a lot of tough conversations are not as tough if you have them early enough.
That's correct. And
okay?
that's what gets a lot of people in a bind is that if you let the little thing go, it's like a snowball rolling down
Absolutely
the hill.
it is.
It's just going to be an avalanche at some point.
And usually if you're doing something wrong and somebody else besides you sees you do it and I don't correct you, they're going to start doing it. And, and just like you said, snowballs. And a lot of leaders don't understand this importance, is you've got to see your people every day. You've got to look at your people. Look at the people in the eyes. If you look at somebody in the eyes, it tells you a lot about us. If you look every day, if I look in your eyes every single day, you can tell me you're fine. I know you're not fine. Yeah. And then I got to start watching. I got to start figuring out, start looking. But if you're around your people, you can pick up on things early on and solve problems, whether it's them to you or employee to employee or employee to customer. Where there's people, there's problems, right? And so a leader has to understand part of your role, part of my job as the director of the thrift store is to solve problems.
Yeah.
You know, people, I'm the complaint department, right? Nobody likes to be complained to all the time. But that's just my role, and that's what you have to do. And I think that's one thing that, another thing I will say this too is when the way I've got it now, every department's somebody's over, okay? And so I will back that employee is over that department. If I don't agree with them, I'll do that behind closed doors.
Sure.
I'll say, this was not the best. Tell me, or before I even say anything, I'll say, why'd you do that? The reason I'll ask the question first is I want to know from them, because if I speak first, then I'm going to say anything.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, why'd you do what you did? And it may be something I totally missed. And I'll go, okay, good call.
Right.
Or it's not a right call.
It's like you're seeking to understand.
Exactly. And then you coach them. You got to view yourself as a leader, as a coach. And a coach trains, but then comes behind and watches and then calls time out. Let's talk about what's happened.
Right.
And that's why I feel like that I'm the leader I am, is because of basketball and then John Maxwell.
So you mentioned John Maxwell, but before we jump into it looks like in 2020, probably pandemic related, you decided to jump in to be a Dave Ramsey certified financial. What is the title for that?
Yeah, financial trainer, coach, speaker. Yeah, so I've always been one of these that as I've cared for my employees and talked to my employees, most of my employees have struggled financially. And most of it's not because of the money they made. They thought it was, but it wasn't. And so I've always, since 2001, I started managing business, I've always had conversations about finances with employees. Always have. And so in 2020, people that know me know I'm not going to sit very good in the house very long, just doing nothing. So me and my wife play a lot of cornhole. As a matter of fact, we wore a little path in our front yard and realized this doesn't look very good when you move the cornhole to the backyard,
right,
so grass can grow again. But one thing I did was I started taking some Dave Ramsey online courses and became a certified coach of Dave Ramsey. And I did that mainly for two reasons. One, to gather more information, but also for strict credibility. For me to, I guess to the core, I'm a coach. Growing up, I followed my dad around. I want to be a coach of some sort, coach basketball. I view myself as a coach at the thrift store. I'm the coach of the team. And then I wanted to help people, so I wanted to coach my staff or anybody who want to talk to me about finances, but also have a heart. I would love to coach people out there. Anybody listening to this want to talk about their finances. I'd love to sit down with you and just give you ideas and talk to you. So I felt like I needed some more information to be able to do that better. It's better material. And then at the same time, some credibility behind my name because, those both carry a lot of weight and a lot of things I've learned from Dave Ramsey.
It definitely does. And, I too agree with you. It's not about an income problem most times. It's about a spending problem. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you spend. No matter what your economic background is or how much money you make, I've seen some very wealthy people that didn't make a ton of money every year. They were just very smart with how they spend their money. And everybody's got their own goals they're trying to achieve. But I do feel like that there's a lot of people in our community that are overwhelmed in debt.
Well,
don't feel like there's a way out.
Right. That's true. Another thing is most people have no idea where they want to go.
Yeah.
They don't have goals. They're just living every day. And so they're living off of emotion.
Yep.
And they're making decisions off emotion. And that is dangerous. When we make decisions on
very
emotion,
expensive.
It's very expensive. The very first person I ever coached was a guy who made 3 times the amount of money I made, and he was in debt. And this was years ago. This was before I even took the class. I said, Coach, very loosely, like as a friend of mine, said, hey, Phillip, I noticed that you're not stressing about money. You have money. And I sat down and met with him, and I realized, oh my gosh, this guy makes 3 times more than I do. He's in debt. He's stressed out. I'm not making hardly any money compared to him, and I'm financially free, and he's not. Yep. So it's not about the amount you make, like you said.
So with this background, you have some ability to be able to coach people financially. So what are some some basic things that you can actually sit down with a person or a family or even a young person? I would heavily encourage
Absolutely.
Someone that's getting out of high school and in the workforce or graduating college to schedule some time with you and say, look, what do I need to do day one so that my parents were not disciplined with their money, or my parents were disciplined, but they never taught me what to do with it? What are some of the things that you can actually sit down and do with some people that can bring true value to them?
Well, let me mention this before I forget about it, but you can also call the First West Counseling Center and schedule a coaching appointment with me. So feel free to do that. So the first thing I think that we've got to do is figure out where we want to go in life. Like, what are our goals? Because my goals will be different than your goals. And so even if you're not goal-oriented, you still need to have a plan for your money. And then another thing you got to do is you got to follow that plan. Come up with a plan and follow a plan. People use the word budget. Some people don't like the word budget, so I think of a plan. How are you going to make a plan? I tell people all the time, let's pretend like we're going to Dallas. If I'm going to go to Dallas, how am I going to get there? Well, we can come up with a plan to get to Dallas, and what we're going to do in Dallas. Same thing with finances. Also, I'll tell people you got to track what you're doing.
Yep.
You've got to track your spending. Most people don't want the receipt at thrift store, don't want the receipt when they go out to eat. Very few places now give you a receipt. I have to ask, can I have my receipt, please? Because nobody wants their receipt. That's a mistake we make. Yeah, we've got to have a plan, and we've got to track our plan.
The minute we got away from places taking cash and that card gets swiped, and there's nothing wrong with swiping that card, but it's like anything else. I mean, it's Dave will say, having that cash in your pocket, when you're getting low on things really, really quickly. You don't think the same way when you're swiping that piece of plastic.
And it's been proven.
And it takes discipline.
You will spend more money swiping a card than paying cash.
Yeah. So we're now, as a society, we're getting to a point where there are some places that don't even take cash. So it's upon us to be more disciplined with it.
And one more thing I will say too is look at prices. Most people do not price shop, even if you go get something to eat. Yeah. I mean, look at the prices. We don't look at prices. We don't track our spending. Those are the 2 biggest things that we don't do.
So that's from a perspective of, how to start off right in life. But what about the family that's got massive debt and they just I'm tired of living this way? Is that anything you can do to help with someone like that too?
Definitely glad to help you. Again, call me at the First West Counseling Center. I can sit down and look at you and get in the weeds on your items, but it's the same thing. The plan is, I want to get out of debt. Okay, how do I get out of debt? And then you got to track our spending and watch our things to get out of debt. So whatever the plan is, whether it's, hey, I want to be a millionaire one day. Okay, you can be a millionaire one day. Yeah. That's your plan. Let's make a roadmap to be able to get there, and then let's track it and let's do it. If it's I want to get out of debt, okay, that's where we want to go. Let's make a plan to be able to do that. So it's a lot simpler than people think it is. It's just a matter is, are you disciplined to follow the plan? And I love the definition I heard from Nick Saban. Discipline is knowing what you're supposed to do, not wanting to do it, but doing it anyway. Same time, knowing something you're not supposed to do, but wanting to do it, can you keep yourself from doing it? And that's the key.
Yeah, but man, when those results start coming in and you can see that snowball effect starting to happen, and that is what, if you can just wait, just maintain that discipline till you can see the progress. I mean, that progress that you're starting to see, you can ride that to the end, because that's
Absolutely.
when
Everybody needs a win. Everybody needs going back even to leadership. When I started giving leadership to somebody that was scared to take it, I couldn't tell this lady who's sorting household, hey, one day you're going to be over all of this. I had to give her something small so she could have a win. That's financially, that's business, whatever. Get a win. It helps us do what you're saying. It helps our confidence. Okay. And then also getting that confidence, but also you start looking and going, you know what? It wasn't that hard. So the fear level drops down.
One of the things you shared with me here a couple of weeks ago is that you're always looking, not necessarily for next, but you're looking for growth. You're looking for what other hill can I actually climb to continue. You're not looking to run from things, you're looking to gain things. And you started talking to me about John Maxwell. You got certified to be a trainer, speaker, coach based on his principles. And it really got me excited, and I can really connect with you on that. I have a professional coach that coaches me professionally. And people say, well, Brian, you sell real estate. What can they do? An awful lot. For me, a professional coach on the business side, it's not about an earth-shattering moment to where something is laid out that says, oh, man, my game is going to be changed now because someone laid this big thing in my lap. It's about taking small incremental changes in the tweaks within my business or my approach to business or the language I'm using or the body language I'm presenting at that time. So talk to me about professional coaching and why that really interests you.
Well, I started doing a little bit of it in 2020. I did some Zoom calls and did some things. Then I rolled out of that. I had some people that actually were a part of those Zoom calls that asked me to help them a little bit. And why I decided to do it was John literally changed my life. Like, I would not be who I am today without learning how to do this from him. And I continue to watch his videos and take his classes and continue to try to grow in this field. And then all I want to do is give away what I got, right? So be a river. And so when I do sit down with somebody, whether it be a CEO or just somebody that's managing someplace or anybody, and the why is I want to teach you these principles that I learned, because I think they obviously are proven to help people. But why have a coach in any way, a financial coach or a business coach is, I think it also holds us accountable. There's things that I know I need to do, but if I don't have anybody holding me accountable, then I'm just going to get lazy sometimes on things.
And we look at the professional athlete that's out there. You name whatever top position you want to name. Let's just say quarterback. That quarterback has a head coach. That quarterback has a quarterback coach that's working with that quarterback. But most of the time, that quarterback has a strength coach that's working with quarterback, and then they probably have a private coach that's coaching them even off the field and off season that's not even affiliated with the team. So if you got your most highly tuned athletes that see the value of a coach, it baffles me why most business leaders don't invest into something to actually up their game. You've taken it upon yourself to go seek additional education to be able to grow you. I don't imagine you initially thought, well, I'm going to grow other people. I need to get this to help me where I'm at. And through that, you're seeing, man, I could help a lot of people. What would you say would be some easy wins? What are some ways that people could utilize you to help them either personally or within their business, their company, their job? Give me some practical.
One thing I think is, and you kind of alluded to it a minute ago, was there's things we don't see. And so by having another set of eyes that is on your side, so to speak, it helps to be able to see things you don't see, whether it be about yourself or things you're missing, maybe pointers that people are telling you, whether it be customers, whether it be your employees, whether it be somebody else is telling you. They're telling you a lot of times, but they may not be verbally telling you. So we have to learn those things. David Benson, I went and sat down with him. David Benson is a Chick-fil-A guy here locally. Now, Chick-fil-A's got a good model, no doubt. But I've been to some other Chick-fil-A's. They're not really as running as David Benson's Chick-fil-A.
100%.
Okay? He does a phenomenal job. And he spent some time with me, and he coached me, if you will, for a season there. And there's been some other guys that I've gone to. David, which I also try to do is provide opportunities by giving you ideas that are proven ideas, not from John Maxwell, things I've tried, David Benson's tried, and things like that. So, most leaders, I feel like, same reason people will not call me about their finances is they don't want to look at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
John Maxwell's got this thing called the 15 Laws of Growth, and one of them is awareness. You can't grow unless you're aware of yourself, because you don't see where you need to grow if you're not being honest with yourself. It's called the law of the mirror. Like, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror. And so all I've done for people is help them be able to see things, but you've got to look at yourself in the mirror. So most people do not want to have anybody give them any idea. Now, again, please understand, like, as a coach, I'm not going to tell you, even financially, do this, this, and this, and this. I want to know what you're going after, and then I'm going to try to help you achieve your goals. Same thing with a business. What are your goals? But how can I help you do it? Is I've got to be able to see things and then give you some pointers. And then once we sit down and you tell me what you want to accomplish, now me being able to meet with you regularly, I can help hold you accountable. I can help hold you, being able to watch things. We talked about it a minute ago. You got to make sure that you're caring for people. Well, I can go in and find out, are you really caring for your people?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but most people aren't going to do it because they don't really want to. Two things I feel like. One, don't look at this in the mirror. And two, we all get this way, Brian. We get to a level, I know it all.
Yep.
Like, I don't want anybody telling me how to do what I do.
Look, the person that feels like they know it all is the person that's losing day one. When I got into real estate, it was back in 2006. They were just got out of pagers, going into cell phones, just getting away from Polaroid and taking digital pictures with that 3.5-inch floppy disk that went into a camera. And email was becoming more common. And I heard an agent say, email, I don't want to do that thing. I told myself, I never want to be in that. So I'm constantly trying to learn for myself, but I don't know it all. And what I've learned is that by hiring a coach for myself personally, that person doesn't need to know every detail of how to do my job. But what they do need to know is areas that frustrate me, things that I feel like are holding me back, so they can help work through that with me. Another thing that I've had coaches help me with, and that's going to be personality profiles. And we say, well, that's just hokey pokey crap. It's not. There's a science behind it. Now, look, the disc, and there's other variation of that. It's not the end all be all to anything, and it's just a tool. But if you know how to interpret or utilize those tools for your advantage, you can stack your team to be more efficient than what you were before. Because I can tell you, for a lot of people, they got the wrong people in the wrong seat of the bus.
Yep.
They may be excellent people and a good fit for the company, but if they're not on the right seat and you don't know they're not on the right seat, it could be causing major stress in an environment. And if I'm not mistaken, that's definitely something you can help someone with.
Yeah, so going back real quick, you talked about the growth. That's one thing, again, my dad coached basketball for 30 years. And the thing I was always amazed about him is every year he went to coaching clinics. So you have to have that mindset, I've got to find a way to grow. But going down to disc, it's something John Maxwell has. It's something I pay for yearly to keep my certification up and take classes on that. It's called the JMT disc. It's the disc profile. And if people don't know what we're talking about, basically every person fits. It's different areas a little bit. Basically, there's 4 categories: D, I, S, and C, and they're different characteristics of each category. And I'm going to go deep in that right now. But one thing that it does help you do is to learn people's personalities, but also the way I like to use it too is to teach the team each other's personalities, because there's so much time in businesses where people within the team have to communicate with each other. And we've got to understand how we're wired, and then we have to understand how somebody else is wired, and we have to understand how to communicate with each other, because communication in any organization is crucial. If I'm not communicating properly to my staff, whether talking or listening, same thing across lines, we've got problems. And so it is something that, thinking about businesses, okay, most people that open small businesses, they get into it because they're passionate about one area. Right. It's not they don't get into it because they really want to be anything more than I like to cook. So I'm gonna open a restaurant because I can cook, right? But then they grow up big enough and they get employees. Oh my gosh, they don't know how to manage employees, right? Or other issues, or they have, Again, I graduated in physical education, so I can't tell you what they teach at Louisiana Tech in business, right? But you have somebody that graduates in business that gets plopped somewhere, and they get there because of a title, because they graduate of a university, but they don't understand how to handle people. They're going to eventually fall into a trap. What a lot of people do is they hire people that are like them. Well, that may not be what you're looking for.
That's correct.
And so we've got to know what each, and it's really cool too, the way this thing works is there's different things that people do that lend more different type of personalities. And I can sit across, and I've done this for a business here locally. They needed to hire somebody. I said, okay, what position are we hiring for? And he told me, like, okay. And that let me know we need this person, this kind of personality. Mm-hmm. And then we sent them a disc, got the results back. There was 3 different people I interviewed, and we looked at all of them. And I said, okay, how do you want to hire? I'm just telling you, based on this disc, and person A is not a fit based on the disc. Mm-hmm. B, maybe. C is the best one based on this personality.
Right.
I don't know about financial what they want. I'm not getting anything else about this.
Sure.
But based on this is the best hire. So I've helped businesses hire people, which I think is crucial, because if you can hire them on the front end, you don't have to worry about massaging it later.
Yeah.
Because again, it's hard to move people a lot of times because people also get comfortable.
Yeah, in which, I mean, just want to be clear, the disc is not the end-all, be-all to everything.
No.
But if you know when you're sitting across the table from someone you're trying to hire for a specific job and a job function, and you have their personality profile, and it will give you key indicators of what they're going to, their natural ability, their adaptive ability, where their stressors are going to come in,
right.
and you can phrase your questions that go in line with that disc so that you can understand for yourself that based on this profile, are they truly going to be a good fit? I've seen people take a disc and, try to play around with it while they're taking it, and you can get inaccurate results. But for the most part, it is a fantastic tool of trying to identify the right people for the right seat on the bus.
And I'm glad you keep using the word because it's so accurate. It's a tool.
Yeah.
Use me as a tool, as a coach. Use the disc as a tool. If you go to a mechanic, you'd be silly if you walked in. I'm going to fix this with no tools. I mean, we want our mechanics to have tools, right? Well, why do we sometimes trick ourselves into thinking we have no tools? Another thing that I think that I've done that has really helped me grow, especially when I got to Daily Harvest, was trying to gain perspective from more than my perspective. What happens is we're in a business so long and we think we know it because we've done it for so long, and we miss indicators and miss things. And so we're constantly trying to ask customers, what are you seeing? We're asking employees. When I start all my staff meetings, I'll go around. I'm the last one to speak. I want to know what they're seeing, or if there's a topic we need to talk about. I want to know their perspectives before I speak. I love what John says. You want to take a lot of good ideas to create a great idea. When I was at Daily Harvest, I started making some changes, but I didn't make it until I called some customers back to my office and I asked them, hey, what do we do good? What do we need to do better? And the first guy looked at me, his insurance salesman locally, looked at me like, why are you asking me this? I said, because you're the customer and there's things you see that I'm never going to see. And so that's another thing too about leading and about leaders is we've got to understand we can't see everything. We've got to get all perspectives. Yeah. Once we get all perspectives, and I can give you a perspective, then you can make the best decision possible going for your company.
A couple things I'm going to put out there. When I hired on the coaching company that I have that's working with me. And I know I'm not putting you on the spot for this, but I just want to give perspective to why a business professional needs a coach. They told me at that time their thing was if I cannot make you 5 times the money that I'm asking you to pay me, I will pay you 5 times the money back at the end of the year. To me, that was a powerful hook because, I mean, it was true. If I submitted to what they wanted me to do to make the changes, inevitably it's going to help my business be able to grow. But from your perspective, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to tell you what I see from watching what you do at that thrift store. I didn't know you back when you were doing Daily Harvest. Maybe Daily Harvest is a little too healthy for me to go in there, but I hear it's good still.
I think we met in those times at the church one time, but you didn't walk in the door.
I did not walk in the door. Shame on me for that. But what I've seen you do at the thrift store and your passion for being able to coach people, let me just kind of speak to the value that I know you can bring to a company. I know you can help them with culture. So if there's a company out there that they don't think they have the best culture, Phillip's your guy. Productivity, if you're not getting the production out of the people that you need, Phillip can help you with that because I've seen it myself. Teamwork, team building within, just creating that community, which kind of goes into culture. Phillip can help you with that. If you have stress in your life about your business, you're doing something wrong. Phillip can help you with that. So I think there's value to many businesses here locally, and they don't even have to be locally. I mean, there's with technology, you can get involved in many different areas. But Phillip, I believe in what you're doing. I'm honored that being a member of First Baptist Church of West Monroe, First West we all call it, and you're running that ministry. It's such a blessing to our community. And I'm just not going to name drop pastors, but I've heard this pastor say it many, many times when they go to these massive conferences around the country, and when they find out that what our thrift store is capable of doing for our community, they want to know how they can have one too. And it's easy to put a sign up and call it a thrift store, but it takes effort to produce what you have helped and your team has helped produce here in Northeast Louisiana, and we're better for it. Phillip, man, I really appreciate the investment that you're making in our community. I appreciate we didn't talk about it, but just our kids, our youth, you have at the thrift store, you have jobs that you always want to make sure they're part-time job, and they're high school students that you're already pouring into trying to teach them what work ethic is, how you communicate to your employer, how you communicate with a customer. What does it mean to have customer service? What does it mean to be a good person? I've heard stories from parents after parents talking about, the good work and the character you've helped instill in our youth. So thank you for that, Phillip.
Well, I appreciate that. And then, you mentioned earlier, next. For me, I just feel like I've been very blessed through my life, and I feel like I got more to give. I really want the core to be able to help businesses transform their lives and this community. I believe in this community. I believe in the people in this community. And so anything I can do, I want to help people. And again, all of my business is because I've screwed up a lot. Okay. Yeah. And I've learned a lot. And it's real life business coaching. It's not theory. It's like real life coaching and things that I can help people do. And I love to do it. And that's why I want to do this.
Well, I think you have a lot to offer our community and to local businesses. I hope people take advantage of what you truly have to offer, because I think there's great value in it. And Phillip, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you. Took you a little while to get you in here. I know you're busy, but the time you spent with us today, I know that there's going to be some people who see some value in it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.